Hey there, fam. meodentv here with today's hot political takes. We've got two juicy commentaries for you, one from CNN and another from Global Times. First up, let's see what CNN has to say about Trump's wild tariff saga. Grab a snack, cause this one's a doozy. So, Trump just backed off from his massive global tariff war, but not without picking a fight with the one country that might actually take the US down in a trade showdown, China. Last week, he was all about his reciprocal tariffs, rolling him out with big fanfare like he's the king of trade. But then Wednesday hits, and boom, he announces a 90-day pause on all those tariffs, except for China. For them, he cranks it up from 104% to a jaw-dropping 125%. It's like he's retreating, but still wants to throw a punch at Beijing in this tit-for-tat mess that's got the world's two superpowers in a bitter standoff. The move comes after days of stock market losses and loud warnings that Trump's about to tip the U.S. economy into a full-on disaster recession. Now, doubling down on China might have been Trump's way of saving face after backing off his big tariff plan, but it's got folks worried sick. Trade between the two biggest economies could grind to a halt, and that's going to hurt both sides bad, plus send shockwaves across the globe. The White House is trying to spin this embarrassing retreat as a huge win, saying they paused the tariffs because a bunch of countries are lining up to make deals with Washington. They claim China got the extra heat because they hit back at Trump's trade war with their own tariffs. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called it a move to take on bad actors, saying China's just asking for trouble by escalating things. Pretty much everyone in D.C. agrees the U.S.-China trade relationship is messed up and needs a tough response to Beijing's shady moves. But Trump's chaotic leadership? It's not looking like it'll work. Every time he throws a dare, Xi Jinping throws one right back, and she's got just as much on the line as Trump does in this showdown. This whole mess has been brewing for years, decades of the U.S. trying to deal with China's trade abuses, plus a relationship that's been going downhill for over a decade as China's turned more aggressive and nationalistic, ready to challenge U.S. dominance. It's a dark moment in a relationship that's going to shape the 21st century, and a big fail for the U.S.'s long effort to keep things from blowing up into a full trade war, or worse, between these two giants. Way back, it started with Nixon's trip to meet Mao, trying to open China and pull them away from the Soviet Union. Then there was the big moment when the U.S. got China into the WTO, hoping it'd push them toward democracy and a Western-style economic system. Spoiler, that dream's dead, and now in Trump's second term, it's all coming apart. He got to power on a wave of anti-globalization anger, blaming China for stealing U.S. jobs and wrecking communities. China's not playing ball, though. They laughed off Trump's earlier 34% tariff hike, saying they're ready to fight to the end. So Trump, caught in this spiraling clash with Xi, had to follow through on his threat and slap that massive 125% tariff on Chinese goods to save face. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was like, countries like China, who retaliate and double down on mistreating American workers, are making a big mistake. Trump's got a spine of steel, and he won't break. Neither will America. Tough talk, but China's showing they think they can outlast Trump. They've been prepping for this fight for years, and it's not clear if Trump and his team are ready for how tough China can be, or the pain they can dish out to U.S. consumers. On Wednesday, China hit back with 84% tariffs on U.S. goods, and everyone's waiting to see what they'll do next on Thursday morning, Beijing time. If Trump thought his great relationship with Xi would get China to back down quick, he's dead wrong. A trade deal like the one from his first term, which fell apart during the pandemic, feels like a pipe dream now. Tensions are sky high, and both sides are full of hubris. Trump's always screaming about how the U.S. has been raped and pillaged by trade partners. Over the top, sure, but he's not the first president to call out China's behavior. There's been drama over stuff like dumping cheap goods, blocking U.S. companies from their markets, stealing intellectual property, messing with their currency, and industrial espionage. Past administrations tried targeted penalties to change China's ways, but Trump's on another level. He thinks he's got a once-in-a-lifetime shot to fix things with the world's biggest trading nation. "We have one shot at this," he told reporters on Monday. But his style's all over the place. No real strategy, just impulse. And it doesn't help that his team's got zero respect for China's power. VP J.D. Vance was on Fox and Friends last week, mocking China like it's nothing. "We borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the stuff those peasants make," he said. "That's not a recipe for prosperity, low prices, or good jobs in America." Dude, China's not just peasants anymore. They're killing it in AI, electric vehicles, energy, you name it. Beijing fired back, calling Vance's comments astonishing, lamentable, ignorant, and disrespectful. She can't back down. He's built his whole image on bringing China back to global glory. Giving in to Trump would be a total loss of face, especially in Asia. Meanwhile, China's rhetoric is all about how the U.S. is trying to wreck their economy and system. Their embassy guy looping you called the U.S. tariffs abuse and a violation of China's legitimate rights. China's media, on the other hand, keeps saying the U.S. is a fading empire, and Trump's chaos just proves it. They see his attacks on allies, like in Southeast Asia, as proof the U.S. can't be trusted, while China's mix of capitalism and control is the better way. She's been modernizing China's economy, and experts like Lily McKelvey from the Center for Strategic and International Studies say he's probably thinking, "Hey, we're doing fine on tech and self-reliance. These tariffs won't hit us that hard." Plus, China's got tools to hit back and make the U.S. hurt too. She doesn't have to worry about elections like Trump does, so he can afford to let his people feel more pain than Trump can with Americans. If U.S. inflation spikes and a recession hits, it might be the U.S. begging for a deal on China's terms. And let's talk about the pain coming for Americans. China's the top supplier of U.S. imports, 16% of the total. Stuff like smartphones, computers, toys. With these new tariffs, prices are going to soar, and a lot of folks won't be able to afford them. Add in the Biden-era tariffs, and China's facing an average tariff rate of almost 150%. China can hit back hard too, like cutting off rare earth minerals the U.S. tech industry needs, or messing with agricultural imports like soybeans and sorghum. They could even slow down goods to the U.S., just like the pandemic supply chain mess that jacked up prices. American companies might get banned from operating in China, too. Small businesses are going to get crushed. Big dogs like Apple can move production to India. But the little guys relying on Chinese goods? They're toast. Alex Jacquez, a former Biden aide, put it bluntly, "If you're a small business, there's going to be pain. You're looking at a drag on GDP, the labor market, and inflation." He added, "There's no rational thought or direction to this strategy." Oof. Then, opinion from Global Times. All right, let's talk about this tariff storm that hit on Wednesday. The U.S. just slapped higher tariffs on nearly 60 trade partners, including a whopping 104% on Chinese goods. That's not just a poke, it's a full-on punch to the global trade system and a wrecking ball to supply chain stability. China's foreign ministry fired back, saying, "You can't mess with our right to develop and our sovereignty, security, and interests? Untouchable." That same day, China dropped a white paper called China's Position on Some Issues Concerning China-U.S. Economic Trade Relations. It basically calls out the U.S. for going rogue with unilateralism and protectionism, saying it's tanking what used to be normal trade vibes between the two. They're pointing fingers at the U.S. for hiding behind America first, while throwing up tariffs and trade barriers, calling it a selfish, short-sighted move that's going to blow up in their face. Here's the thing. Development isn't just a buzzword, it's a basic human right, straight out of the UN Charter and Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Every country should get a fair shot at improving their economy and living standards, no exceptions. But the U.S., the world's biggest economy, has been cashing in on global trade rules forever. And now that they've got their own economic headaches, they're dumping the burden on everyone else. That's straight up irresponsible. America First is all about power plays, using tariffs, tech blocks, and industrial decoupling to rewrite globalization rules. It's a blatant middle finger to every nation's right to grow. The WTO's most favored nation principle and tariff commitments are supposed to be the bedrock of fair trade, especially for developing countries trying to get a foothold. But these tariffs are hitting them hardest. Least developed nations are getting crushed. Stable supply chains are a must for economic growth, and trade is how countries plug into globalization. Yet here's the US, setting up roadblocks and toll booths, trying to control who gets to develop and who doesn't. It's a step backward for history and a betrayal of what we're all supposed to stand for. And guess what? The world's not taking it lying down. China hit back hard, jacking up tariffs on US goods to 84% starting Thursday, showing they're in it for the long haul to defend the global trade system. The EU's not playing either. Most of its 27 members voted for 25% counter tariffs on $23.2 billion of US goods, payback for last month's duties on EU steel and aluminum. Canada jumped in too, slapping 25% tariffs on US vehicles starting Wednesday. Even the US's old school allies are like, nah, we're not paying for your America First nonsense. This whole mess just proves America First isn't winning any friends. It's isolating the US and tanking its global cred. The US thinks it can reshape the world economy with tariff walls, but they're forgetting how much they rely on global supply chains and how tough other countries can be. Here's the irony. America First is screwing over Americans the most. High tariffs mean pricier raw materials, which doesn't bring back manufacturing. It just squeezes profits and pushes small businesses into bankruptcy. The U.S.-China Business Council says the trade war cost the U.S. 245,000 jobs in 3 years after 2018. America First isn't stealing anyone's development rights. It's just a fancy way of saying self-sabotage. What the world needs is fairness, not bullying. That means respecting everyone's right to grow and sorting out issues through WTO talks, not tariff tantrums. America First might sound tough, but it's just short-sighted unilateralism. And it's making global cooperation more crucial than ever. If the world teams up to push back on this anti-globalization nonsense, we can protect fair development rights and actually get to shared prosperity. Thanks for sticking with us until the end of this segment. meodentv will keep bringing you the latest on global politics in our upcoming clips. Stay tuned.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã lắng nghe. Đừng quên nhấn đăng ký và like để không bỏ lỡ bất kỳ tin tức mới nào. Hãy chia sẻ video này để thông tin được lan tỏa đến nhiều người hơn và để lại bình luận để chúng ta cùng thảo luận. Theo dõi kênh meodentv để cập nhật những tin tức nóng hổi nhất. Cảm ơn các bạn một lần nữa.